I was cheated on by my wife and her boss, but I took them both down without regret or mercy. When I returned home to see my beloved wife, I was met with a stunning scene. She was lying in bed with her lover, who also happened to be her boss. At first, I wanted to push them out, but things got worse when her lover began embarrassing and harassing me. I became enraged and resolved to exact revenge. Now, I am sitting in a prison cell and will not agree to any inducement to reduce the accusations of assault and battery. I told my folks my story in the hopes of explaining how I ended up in this circumstance. If I had taken advantage of these opportunities, I could have avoided jail time, community service, and potentially saved my marriage. But since this episode, my marriage is no longer a priority. At least my liberty would have been protected. My name is Ronald Jacobs. I'm 29 years old and worked on a construction site before being imprisoned. I was once happily married to Kaylee, who is also 29 years old, and I believed her to be my life partner. When I say I was married, I mean just that. We are in the process of divorcing. Kaylee, who formerly worked as a secretary for one of the partners at a legal company, may still be in this position as far as I know. It is obvious where everything is going. Some persons in positions of authority frequently have a mistress at home to elevate the prestige of their family, and any woman under the age of 50 is considered a potential target. When presented with the opportunity to wield their influence, these individuals do not hesitate. They understand how to use the legal system to their advantage and frequently have the financial resources to get the desired outcome. Randolph Wiseman is one such person. His father founded a business, and he loved his success until he made a few significant blunders. I must say that I completely understand his attraction to women. Randy was tall and powerfully muscular with permanently tanned skin. He was just under 40 years old, and my wife kept pointing out how handsome he was. I wasn't offended by her compliments because I recognized the attraction, as did our friends and even odd women we met. We were upfront and honest with each other, understanding that in a world of nearly 8 billion people, it is human nature to find others beautiful. Kaylee had never given me reason to question her loyalty. I used to believe that we were inseparable and entirely devoted to one another. However, despite her insistence that nothing has changed, I am having difficulty understanding her position in light of recent events. Although being in prison allowed me to choose who I talked to, I had shut off communication with Kaylee since my incarceration, despite attempts by our lawyers, family, and concerned friends. I've made it obvious to everyone involved that I will not discuss Kaylee again, and any communication between us will be cut off. After being harassed by several friends and Kaylee's sister, I chose to remove myself from them and refuse to communicate with them. My lawyer, seeing he was on thin ice, didn't want to pass up the opportunity to profit from my impending divorce. As a marital lawyer, he saw an opportunity to earn a large quantity of money. Despite the fact that I was facing a 10-year term for serious assault and bodily harm, I ended up receiving a 2-year sentence. I was fortunate to have the judge who heard my case, and I suspected his personal experience affected his decision. I believe his wife was unfaithful to him. Throughout the trial and sentencing, he stated that I had been subjected to significant provocations by my wife and her partner, as well as the latter's disrespectful behavior. However, he also stated that some of the injuries were not caused by self-defense, and that some of them warranted a lengthy prison sentence. He said that if I accepted the district attorney's plea deal, I could save the state from having to go to trial. I've been serving my term for 8 months and am hoping to be released in a year if I continue to behave well, especially since I had a spotless record before this incident. When I am liberated, I want to exact retribution and cause agony on those who have injured me, no matter the repercussions, even if it means returning to prison. They will all receive what they deserve, particularly that vile bastard. Simply put, this is what I sent to my folks, dear parents. I apologize for bringing you embarrassment as a result of my conduct in prison. It was not my purpose to bring shame on you. I was faced with a decision. I could either face the consequences, live with the guilt of what I had done, or accept a plea deal to avoid going to prison. I hope you can see why I couldn't live with this sensation. My feelings for Kaylee were strong and genuine, and I truly believe that our relationship was meant to last. But I was mistaken about her character. I never suspected her relationship with Wiseman, even when she casually acknowledged his good looks. But what does it matter? After all, lots of people are gorgeous. One day, the direction of my life changed dramatically. We finished a significant remodeling of the house that morning. We had a drink with the team at lunch and went about our business. When I arrived home, I saw a BMW parked in the driveway, but Kaylee's car was nowhere to be found. This immediately created concern because I had never questioned her allegiance before. Someone had obviously driven her home in a fancy automobile. As soon as I walked inside her calm house, my attention was pulled to the sounds coming from above, so I went to our bedroom. I discovered my wife with her boss, which was extremely heartbreaking. While they were ignorant of my presence, her employer blatantly commented that he was a true guy in comparison to me. I felt a flood of rage pour over me, and for a little minute I was paralyzed. Despite his outward appearance, I realized his true power resided in hard labor, something he, with his toned figure, would never grasp. Without thinking, I grabbed him by the hair, drew him away from her, and pressed him against the wall. I looked at Kaylee, who appeared shocked by the incident. I sternly advised her to pack her belongings and leave. Randolph brushed me off and pretended to be cool. "So you think you are cool?" He chuckled, but before he could finish his sentence, I slapped him in the face with all of my force, causing him to stagger. I told him he wasn't welcome in my home and could try his luck elsewhere. I cautioned him that if he stayed, he would have serious regrets. Wiseman recklessly chose to ignore my words and swung at me. Without thinking, I grabbed his wrist and immediately twisted it behind him. I warned him again. He began shrieking that if I even touched him, he would ensure that I spent a large amount of time in prison and would stay with Kaylee while I was away. He added that I was a pitiful excuse for a man. His arrogant expression vanished as I continued to squeeze, producing a terrible crunch that echoed across the room. When he screamed in pain, I knocked him down to the floor. Kaylee rushed up to me and begged, "Stop it, Ron. If you continue to act in this manner, he may arrest you. Please stop." "Are you more concerned about your boyfriend, Kaylee?" I snapped back. "No, Ron, I am concerned about you. I do not want him or me to ruin your life." "I was a fool," she admitted. I looked at her coldly and said, "It is no longer your business." She attempted to approach me, overwhelmed with emotion. I eventually spat in her face, which I now regret greatly. She continued on, regardless of my actions. I yelled at her to pack her belongings and leave, calling her a disgraceful person who I no longer wanted to meet. To my surprise, she obeyed, and she began to cry. I turned to Wiseman and added, "Your actions do not match your name. You are a jerk. A person of intelligence would never purposefully incite people like me, especially with disrespectful expressions like peeping, unless they are looking for trouble, as you are. Pay attention. As soon as this woman finishes packing, you will leave as well. I recommend that she take you to the emergency room to relieve your pain. Don't return here anymore. My grandfather gave me this house before we married. She has no rights to it, so do not try. If you do, I won't hesitate to take more serious measures next time. If you don't want to end up in a hospital bed or in a wheelchair, stay away from me. It's your responsibility now. Either bring her home to meet your family or get rid of her, I don't care." Behind me, Kaylee let out a desperate moan, but I stood my ground. "Kaylee, I'm far from perfect, and I'll never forget what you did. You're an insidious liar. Maybe you should have been more careful and booked a hotel room, then maybe I wouldn't have found out the truth." I hit him hard on the sensitive area. "Was this your devious plan? Do it in my bed?" Another blow followed, causing him to cry out in horror. "Remember, if you give me even the slightest reason in the future, I will completely ruin your life." Dear Mom and Dad, I decided to explain to you how everything went wrong between Kaylee and me. I know it was harsh, but I hope you can understand my point of view. I am in the process of divorcing her, and as soon as it is completed, I will be free from this toxic relationship. I have no intention of looking back or even acknowledging its existence. My last memory of her will be an insulting act. I spat in her face, which unfortunately seemed justified at that moment. I appreciate your support during this difficult time, but I must admit that I have lost faith in the institution of marriage. I can't imagine ever being able to trust another woman the way I trusted Kaylee. It pains me to say this, but she betrayed that trust in a way I could never have imagined. I'm sorry, Mom, but I didn't hesitate to trust Kaylee, and now I see the consequences of this decision. That night led to my arrest and the beginning of all this chaos. Wiseman did his best to get me behind bars, provided the sheriff's office with detailed reports on my injuries, and enlisted the help of a friend in the district attorney's office to bring charges against me. Among those charges was aggravated assault, a crime for which I could have been jailed for up to 10 years. He managed to convince Kaylee to press charges against me for spitting in her face. After my arrest, the trial began. It turned out that Kaylee decided to drop the assault charge against me, considering it insignificant. With the help of a lawyer, I received a plea offer from the district attorney. The deal included a plea of guilty to misdemeanor assault, a 6-month suspended sentence, and payment of Wiseman's medical bills. This offer was conditional on 2 conditions. First, Wiseman demanded that I sign an agreement in which I promised to keep secret the information that I had recently shared with my wife about the attack. Second, I was asked to postpone my divorce from Kaylee until we completed a marriage counseling course. These conditions seemed to them to be a way to find an easy way out of the situation, but I did not want to agree. Instead, I decided to turn down the offer and stand trial. Despite the fact that my lawyer regarded this proposal as positive since it was possible to avoid imprisonment, He also warned me that if the trial did not go in my favor, then I would face a long term of imprisonment, up to 10 years. I began to doubt that he really understood the gravity of the situation, the dramatic events that had occurred in my own home, and that Wiseman had shown me such disrespect. Despite the possible consequences, I was determined to take revenge at any cost. I wasn't afraid of going to jail. I felt prepared and confident in my ability to cope with life behind bars. I was sure that when I was released, I would be able to find a job in construction despite my criminal record. I was determined to fight for justice and not let anyone disrupt my life. I didn't want to reconcile with Kaylee. She disappeared from my life forever. As the days passed, I was informed that a visitor had come to see me. Since relatives had already come a few days ago, I thought it was them again. But when they brought me into the room, Kaylee was there, and I quickly called the guards. They came to see what was going on, and I strongly demanded that they no longer let this woman come to see me. She tried to say that she was my wife, but they escorted her out, saying that I had the right not to let visitors in. I turned to a lawyer for advice and started the divorce process. I asked my lawyer about the possibility of litigation with Kaylee's employer and her boss, Wiseman. He informed me that although alienation of affection lawsuits are allowed in our state, none of them have been successful in 2 decades. At the same time, he mentioned that the company may prefer to settle the case out of court to avoid public outcry, and we could emphasize their lack of moral values. I also asked about the consequences of resolving a legal dispute before or after our divorce. He gave a direct answer. He suggested waiting until after the divorce to reduce the estate before coming to an agreement. Our house is safe, but she will get half of the rest of the property. I will resolve this issue with them after the divorce. If you happen to talk to her, please don't discuss any of this with her. I know that you both loved her, but I believe that you will not disappoint me. Mom and Dad, I appreciate both of you. This situation is temporary. I hope you now understand the whole story, not just the one that Kaylee and a few friends told me, who thought I should forgive her. Before I was released, there was a hitch in the divorce process. Kaylee demanded that certain conditions be met. I had to either agree to consultations, as she had suggested earlier, or allow her 3-hour visits during which we had to talk. She knew that I could easily brush her off during these visits. Despite my strong desire to end the divorce, I decided that 3 short consultations were better than the initial court requirement. I briefly thought about giving up both options, serving my time and then disappearing. But I was determined not to let her kick me out of the house, especially since my parents were approaching retirement and wanted me, their only son, in their lives while they were getting old. The very thought of being in her presence made my skin crawl, but against my better judgment, I agreed to her offer of 3 visits. I reassured myself that if the situation became too unbearable, I could always ask for help to get her kicked out. During my first visit, Kaylee greeted me with a casual, "Hi Ron, you look decent, considering everything that's going on." I couldn't suppress my rage and replied, "Go to hell, Kaylee. It's your fault that you couldn't control yourself and slept with your boss. Say what you need to say and then get out." Kaylee's attempt to bring me to tears just disgusted me. I no longer cared about her sentiments. I just detested her, realizing that hate is not the reverse of love, but rather a love that has been damaged beyond recognition. I've not yet reached the point of mature indifference where thoughts about my ex-partner cease to matter. I aspire to acquire this condition of utter indifference in the near future. "Ron, I'm surprised by the damage I've done to you in a relationship," Kaylee stated. "You're not the only one who looks at things that way," I answered. "Ron, could you just listen to me without resorting to insults?" she asked. "I can hear you, Kaylee, but I'm not interested in hearing what you have to say. You cheated on me in our own home, in our bed, with a man who mistreated and humiliated me. How could you ask me to forgive, forget, or even endure your presence in my life?" Kaylee's face grew pale, and tears flowed down her cheeks. "That's why I wanted 3 meetings," she explained. "I am not feeling well today, but I will be back. My love for you is unshakable, regardless of your thoughts. I consent to these 3 encounters, but please understand that I carry a profound animosity against you for causing us harm. I despise both your deeds and you. Reconciliation is not an option for me. Following these meetings, I don't want anything to do with you anymore." She stood in silence and lightly knocked on the door, requesting permission to leave. A week later, another visitor appeared on the porch, my mother. Despite my cautions, I decided she had come to speak with me about Kaylee. "Ron, I understand you are afraid to bring this up," she began. "I appreciate that this may have a detrimental impact on our relationship, but please allow me to share my views." I agreed, allowing her the chance to speak. "You hold a particular place in my heart, but this is a one-time request, okay, Mom?" I had to cut her out of my life. "Whatever you say, nothing will change. I am going to adore you anyway," my mother replied. "Thank you, son. I adore you more than anyone else, even your father. I understand what she did you can't pardon, but I'd like to discuss this for your sake, not for her sake. I do not expect you to forgive her or give her a second opportunity. She does not deserve it. You deserve a trustworthy spouse. But Ron, what I'm about to say is for your own good. You may feel as if you loathe her right now, and this is entirely possible. However, you will not find peace in your life unless you let go of all of this hatred. I'm just asking that you talk to her without being aggressive or verbally attacking. She approached me last week, hoping to strike up a discussion. Ron, she is severely traumatized, completely broken. She is concerned that she was duped by this devious man and ultimately betrayed you. She acknowledges she has lost you and recognizes the gravity of your remarks from the prior visit. You brought her as much misery as you wanted. If your purpose was to break her, you've succeeded. I'm simply asking you to listen to her without insisting that you change your views. I understand you will not do it, and neither will she. Even if it appears that there is no way to remedy everything, please allow her to go with dignity out of respect for those good times you shared together. Imagine how you'll feel 10 years from now if it turns out that your statements influenced her decision to kill herself. Mom, I can be indifferent and say I don't care what's happening to her right now, but you're correct. Anger will subside over time, making place for guilt. In the present situation, I wouldn't want to live with the guilt over her act. Thanks for your wise remarks, Mom. I'll quit trying to make her life miserable. I truly loved her with all of my heart. However, it appears divorce is the only way out. I'll be released from prison shortly, and I'm determined to stay free forever. I am grateful to you and Dad for your ongoing love and support. I could not have asked for better parents. Thank you for guiding me to this conclusion, Mom. I know it's the correct decision for me, even if it's not the best one for Kaylee. A few days later, Kaylee approached me again, and this time I initiated the conversation first. Kaylee, I'd like to apologize for my prior behavior. Looking back, I see that my statements were harsh and lacked civility. You are deserving. After conversing with my mother, I learned how vital it is to be kind, especially after all the fantastic moments we had together before everything went upside down. Thank you, Ron, and thank you very much to your mother for her support, even though I didn't ask for it. I recognize that I may not have another shot with you, but I feel compelled to convey my regret for my actions. To be entirely honest, you are the best person I have ever met or will ever know. Perhaps we can avoid a third encounter. I do not want to disturb you any further, but I believe it is vital to resolve the matter. Despite the fact that I am nearly 30 years old, I behave like a child. I allowed myself to be persuaded by an older man who appeared smart and lavished me with attention, resulting in the betrayal of the person I actually love. I now realize how dumb I was, Ron. I made a mistake, which I really regret. He used a small amount of money and compliments on my attractiveness to control me, and I fell for it. I was naive and ignorant, falling for superficial flattery. Most of all, I regret allowing him into our bed more than any other aspect of my treachery. I have no justifications for my behavior, and I am aware of the gravity of my mistake. His urge to engage in the unlawful act of being with a married lady in her husband's bed compelled me to make a heinous decision that resulted in profound contempt for you. I sincerely apologize, Ron. I now understand that you have the right to seek divorce. My acts demonstrate a lack of self-esteem, and if I can't respect myself, how can I expect you to love me the way you did before? I'm still hoping to save our marriage, but now I understand that this is impossible. My heart is torn because you're the only person I've ever truly loved. I am ready to sign all of the divorce papers as soon as feasible. Ron, you deserve more than me. You are a fantastic person and will be an excellent father. I've always wanted to start a family with you and grow old together. If there is anything I can ask of you, this is it. Please do not allow my faults to jeopardize your future. You deserve to be with a lady who will make you happy and support you as you establish a lovely life together. May your family be proud of you and cherish one another. I'd like to be that kind of lady for you, but I lack the confidence to change anything. Perhaps one day you will recall our time together fondly, rather than focusing on how I let you down. I've given my word. Now it is time for me to leave. I want you to know that I made mistakes that had an impact on my own life, but just don't let my actions destroy yours. My feelings for you will always be there. Goodbye, Ron. Despite everything that had happened, I felt genuinely affected. I told her, Kaylee, you're correct. We cannot repair our relationship. Everything is clear to me now. I'll never be able to regain the trust I once had in you, but today you reminded me of the woman I once loved. Kaylee, I want you to know that while I can't love you again without trust, I no longer harbor animosity towards you. I hope you find happiness, Kaylee. A mistake does not make you bad. It simply means that you are not right for me. Goodbye, Kaylee. We shared a brief hug before she left. She clearly struggled to say these words. She admitted her flaws and stupidities. but nothing she said could alter my decision to end our marriage. Kaylee agreed to sign the papers without requiring another meeting. She fulfilled her promise by signing the divorce papers, which marked the start of our divorce proceedings, pending a final decision. Shortly after Kaylee and I had our final breakup, I received confirmation of my release date from prison. After I was released, my parents came to pick me up. I spent all of my time in prison determined to make Randolph Wiseman's life difficult by strictly adhering to the law. The day after my release, I met with my lawyer to discuss our plans to bring justice to Wiseman. Even though I served a year in prison for my actions against him, I believed that his punishment was insufficient. When I discovered him in my bed with Kaylee, he threatened me with imprisonment, so I physically assaulted him. Was it worth spending a year in prison? I don't think so. He only received a small portion of what he deserved. I was determined to send his life into a tailspin. My lawyer and I devised a strategy for holding Wiseman accountable. Our initial plan was to contact his firm and inform them that we intended to sue for negligence to prevent future relationships between his employees. We anticipated that they would most likely reject our request, citing a lack of similar cases investigated in the state over the previous 2 decades. As a next step, we intended to launch a media campaign to promote our cause. The story goes like this. The husband, feeling insulted, publicly talks about how he found his wife with the boss in their house. He tells how Wiseman humiliated him until he had to physically expel this lawyer from his territory. Subsequently, the husband was arrested on charges associated with Wiseman and the district attorney and spent a year in prison for assault. In addition, Wiseman's actions played a significant role in the ongoing divorce proceedings. Thanks to my lawyer's connections with a journalist who had a grudge against Wiseman, our strategy bore fruit. The story got into the newspapers and attracted the attention of the national press. We assumed that Wiseman's associates would want to avoid a scandal and would prefer to settle the case out of court. My ultimate goal was to destroy Wiseman's marriage, just as he destroyed mine. I decided to postpone my revenge until I had settled matters with the law firm. Our expectations regarding the result turned out to be absolutely correct. Although the company rejected our claims and confidently stated that we would not win anything in court, chaos broke out in the company after my lawyers sent the letter. All traces of their former equanimity disappeared. Their tension was palpable. They even threatened bankruptcy if I talked to the media, unaware that I was already on the verge of financial collapse, facing a year behind bars with almost no savings and vague prospects for the future. Strangely enough, difficult circumstances made me immune to the fear of bankruptcy. When my lawyer contacted them again, he emphasized the seriousness of my situation and offered to take up the case for free due to the blatant injustice my unfortunate husband had been subjected to. They requested a face-to-face meeting at their office. When we entered the conference room, we found ourselves face-to-face with Randolph Wiseman. As I sat down, he couldn't help but quip, well, look who's here, the little cuckold himself. I heard you came to beg. Did you have a good time behind bars thanks to me and the district attorney? I knew you were too foolish to accept the deal he offered. Randolph, I asked you not to talk to me in that tone. Now you've earned yourself another trip to the chiropractor, I retorted furiously. At this time, William Wiseman, another descendant of the company's founder, intervened in the conversation. Come on, Randolph, stop playing the tough guy. We're attempting to find a solution, not aggravate the situation. So if you can't keep silent, you should let others deal with it. Feeling a little offended by his partner's criticism, Randolph sheepishly answered, Okay, William, I understand. We've known each other for a long time, that's why we're here. Let's hear them out. My lawyer, Giles, interjected in the conversation. Gentlemen, our purpose, as expressed in our letter, is simple. We want to make a claim for alienation of affection. Although some may consider this a trivial matter with little prospect of success, we believe otherwise. This is a very unusual opportunity for us to earn considerable recognition for your law company with the help of a resourceful journalist. However, the story of Mr. Jacobs's treachery and imprisonment, which was made possible by the links between a partner of this firm and the prosecutor, may not get the attention you were looking for. Howard Green, senior partner and the eldest son of Arnold Green, one of the firm's founders, intervened. My client lost his wife and spent a year in prison as a result of your partner Randolph Wiseman's acts. If not for Wiseman's inappropriate behavior, my client would be happily married and working for free. This firm has caused serious damage to my client, and if a lawsuit does not resolve the issue, we will examine alternative actions. I must inform you that my journalist colleague's ex-wife works at this company. Could you guess which partner she obeyed? He is particularly interested in damaging your public image, Giles stated. Peter Cooper, who had remained silent up until that point, let out a startled scream. Indeed, he stated, giving Wiseman a contemptuous look as if he were a bothersome particle on a shoe. Giles resumed his remarks, noting that while we believe $1 million is insufficient, it is an appropriate amount to handle the company's current issue. Peter Cooper interrupted him again. We will let you know our decision by the end of the day. Good afternoon, Mr. Jacobs. I regret any inconvenience given by this individual, he said, exiting the room with obvious disappointment. It quickly became evident that the partners were not only willing to pay compensation but also chose to buy out Wiseman's shares at a drastically discounted price, thereby removing him from the list of partners. They needed my signature to publicly acknowledge the final settlement of the case with their firm and avoid future claims. Another aspect of my difficulty has been settled, allowing me to focus on other issues. My major purpose was to get back at Wiseman, and I didn't need legal assistance, just my determination and a little bit of planning. I began getting to know Wiseman's wife. She was a regular at the gym, visiting 4 times a week to keep her physique. Despite having 3 children, although she was slightly fuller in the hips than previously, she was still stunningly gorgeous. I puzzled why someone like her wasn't enough for Wiseman. After 2 weeks of studying her daily routine, I discovered an unusual pattern in which she visited the home of a man 10 years younger than her. One Wednesday, I decided to approach her as she was leaving his house. Mrs. Wiseman, might we talk? I caught up with her as she walked toward her car. I'm sorry, but I'm in a rush, she said. Does your hubby know about the Wednesday meetings, Mrs. Wiseman? My question caught her off guard, exposing a common secret. When she hesitated, I wondered if there was something else to the narrative. So, what do you need? She finally asked. Mrs. Wiseman, this is just a discussion. Let me buy you a coffee from the cafe across the street. This is a public space, and I pledge not to hurt you. We found empty chairs, and I began the conversation by asking if she remembered her spouse returning home from an injury more than a year earlier. He had a dislocated shoulder from many fractures. She verified that she recalled. Then I admitted that I was the cause of these injuries. I explained that I had found him in bed with my wife and challenged him. He attempted to discredit me, so I took affairs into my own hands. Did he explain that he is no longer a partner at his company? She shook her head. I tackled this topic too subtly. I'm now looking for methods to get him in even more trouble, Mrs. Wiseman. I assume you are aware that your husband has previously behaved in this manner? I asked. Yes, it was normal for our entire marriage. As you may have observed, I've recently been having extramarital affairs too. One of them is Ryan, whom I saw this morning, she said, smiling gently. She glanced at me and said, I do not mean to offend you, Mr. Jacobs, but I can't help but wonder what your wife was thinking when she said Randy was great in bed. Maybe she was insane, or perhaps she was captivated. He's quite good at it, but not in bed. My ex-wife was also unable to provide me with a satisfactory explanation. She simply hates herself for betraying me so readily. She is extremely sorry. Do you, Mrs. Wiseman, put up with his adultery and find solace elsewhere? I inquired with disappointment in my voice. Mrs. Wiseman seemed to follow my train of thought. I see what you mean, Mr. Jacobs. Did you really expect to meet a devoted woman who would be surprised by her husband's infidelity? Perhaps you were hoping for a divorce, she remarked, recognizing my intentions. I'm sorry for disappointing you, Mr. Jacobs. Over the last 8 years, I've had the most profound closeness of my life. Certainly not with my hubby. It's very wonderful. I hope we could meet more than once a week, but I need to be careful not to get detected. I am attempting to be circumspect, but it appears that I am not being sufficiently circumspect. You figured it out immediately. You have to understand that I adore Randy. I once loved sincerely, but his cheating ended that love. Having children complicates things, Mr. Jacobs. I don't suppose you have any children together. Regardless, in our partnership, only I have financial resources. I inherited a significant trust fund from my grandfather. If we ever part, I could have to give him alimony. However, I am not convinced about it. Maybe these monies are safe. I never considered getting divorced due to her children. For their sake, I keep Randy with me because, despite his imperfections, he is a decent father. Mr. Jacobs, I try to be discreet, but it appears that Randy is aware of my relationships with other guys on Wednesday evening. I don't have time to tidy up after meeting with Ryan. I have a feeling he is aware, despite his confidence in his ability to cuckold other men like you. I think he can just pretend, she replied, smiling. I'd want to have my needs met more frequently than once per week. Are you prepared to reciprocate the intimacy? I would gladly assist you in carrying out your revenge. Are you free on Friday mornings? I prefer the morning because I need to pick up the kids from school in the afternoon. I've accepted that Wiseman will not divorce in the future, but perhaps I could try sleeping with his wife as retaliation. It's claimed that revenge is best served cold. My name is Esther, Mr. Jacobs. If we're going to have a secret connection, I'd like to know your name too. My name is Ronald, Esther, and I can't wait until Friday. I know where you live. Why don't I come over at 10 o'clock? The children will most likely be at school by now, I said. She nodded in accord. She was not what I expected, but she was an incredible woman. I couldn't resist her charms. Since I met my wife and her husband, I have not had close relationships with anyone. It appeared to me that this was the correct decision. We closed the chat by agreeing to meet on Friday, which was not what I expected. I eagerly awaited the conclusion of the stillness. The prospect of seeking solace in Wiseman's wife, despite her lack of physical attractiveness, sounded appealing. I couldn't wait to know her better. I had no idea how happy that would make me. That Friday morning, we had an unexpectedly good time together, and then we slept side by side, cuddling as if to reinforce the reality of our common experience. I instantly understood that we had a deeper connection than just physical desire. We had casual discussions at first, but then she mentioned that our wives might trade us for each other. She praised me by calling me handsome, and in return I expressed my surprise. Why would your husband look for someone else when he has such a wonderful wife waiting for him at home? Every Friday we met in the same way until that terrible day came. She lovingly kissed my cheek before delivering those dreadful words. "Ron, we need to chat." When she kissed me with exceptional passion, attempting to relieve the tension, I couldn't shake the sensation that she was about to end our relationship. "Ron, I've already stated that I am from an affluent family. I have a trust fund, which is probably why Randy married me. I represented a visually appealing life partner and, more crucially, a source of financial stability. What I didn't realize was the depth of this money. My grandfather was a true tycoon with unimaginable money and spending habits. If someone could squander this wealth, it would be his sole source of heir, my father. My grandfather doubted his son's capacity to manage money responsibly, so he gave him a monthly allowance for comfort, not largesse. The remainder of the money was put into a trust fund for me, which I will be able to access when I become 38 years old. I'm not sure why this number was chosen as the age for access, but the deadline is approaching in just 8 months. After spending time with you on our first Friday together, I felt compelled to learn more about my trust money, particularly in regards to divorce. It is entirely secure. Randy has no rights to it. I brought it into our marriage, and neither of us have replenished it. It has stayed mostly unchanged, with the option to withdraw a small sum each year. My financial advisor encourages me to follow specific regulations to protect the deposit's inviolability, which he believes is critical. Although he is normally assured of its safety, I question if I truly need Randy in my life. Can I give him an infinite number of visits with the children, as determined by us? I realized I'd come to terms with Randy and no longer loved him. Why should I stay with a partner who keeps cheating on me? I understand it may appear deceptive, but he cheated on me before I cheated on him. Ron, I am not asking you to replace Ryan. I want to express that I have feelings for you. I want to see you as frequently as we both wish, and I believe we can be more than simply casual partners. I'm ready to depart from Brian if you're ready to join me. Esther, I believe this is the most crucial conversation of our lives, I said. I waited for her to show her gratitude before saying goodbye. I wholeheartedly support your proposal. Like you, I initially saw it as a method to exact retribution, but now I realize that it is evolving into something more profound. We continued to meet every Friday until we had properly addressed everything. She informed me she met Ryan on Wednesday, but merely to say goodbye. Ron, I've devised an insidious but intriguing scheme. Let me divulge my strategy, which I intend to surprise Randy with next Friday morning. After she shared her proposal, a broad grin flashed across my face. She was a genius. The following Friday arrived. Esther and I were fully engrossed in our typical Friday morning trip. At this time, our passion for each other seemed inexhaustible. We had no idea that a man named William Fox, dressed in a scruffy business suit, was calmly sitting in the living room below conducting business. Suddenly, we heard a voice say, "Who the hell are you? What are you doing here? Where's Esther?" Randy was summoned by his mistress to an urgent midday meeting. Despite his persistent pleas for additional information, she emphasized that it was critical and begged him to come. "Are you Mr. Wiseman, sir?" "Your wife informed me that you were coming," Ryan said. Randy approached and heard a voice, "She's upstairs with her escort. If you'd like to join them." Ryan's voice resonated across the room, prompting us to stop the talk. Esther was looking forward to his arrival, while I was distracted and lost in my own thoughts. Esther took the initiative. "Come on, Ron, show me what you are made of. You are superior to my spouse in every way," she screamed, attempting to persuade me. "Randy, sweetie, you seem upset. Relax, I'm simply having some fun on the side, exactly like you." With that, I turned around, allowing Randy to see who was in bed with his wife. "The cuckold himself? You must be joking," he exclaimed. "Why would you bring this clumsy guy into our bedroom? Get rid of him before I lose my cool." I got out of bed and went over to him. So, what do you think of my answer? And in terms of threats, do you feel yourself to be that powerful? Remember, I promised you a visit to the doctor. He seemed terrified, but I calmed him down. Do not worry, we've got something else for you. There is a surprise waiting for you under the pillow. I escorted him to his bed, and as he reached beneath the pillow, he pulled out an envelope. Esther and I said with one voice, "You have been served." William Fox, who followed us upstairs, promptly snapped a photo of us. "It's official. We did everything perfectly," I declared. Randy froze in surprise, appearing as stunned as when I dislocated his shoulder once. Esther gave Randy a gentle slap in the face to bring him back to reality, then explained that what he was suffering was simply vengeance for his acts against me. She publicly declared that she no longer loved him because of his infidelity during their marriage, and that her feelings had evolved into genuine neglect. Esther told him that she would not stand between him and their children, offering him complete access to them. She even offered him the services of a lawyer if he desired, believing that for the sake of the children, they could handle the divorce matter calmly rather than turning it into a bloody battle. Randy stayed calm and nodded in accord with her statements. Despite his gruff personality, he was no idiot. He accepted that his marriage was ended and that fighting it would be a waste of time and resources. Standing there, I witnessed his world shatter. My first goal was met. I successfully divorced Kaylee, and with my mother's help, I did it with grace and dignity, recognizing her error. Esther accepted responsibility for the consequences and apologized profusely. My mother's warnings proved accurate. I was able to secure a significant settlement from Kaylee's employers. And with Esther's assistance, I successfully turned over Wiseman's script, eventually teaching him a lesson. The manipulator was duped, and I played a role in destroying his marriage. Furthermore, perhaps I fulfilled Kaylee's wish when she said, "Don't let my mistakes define your future. Find someone who truly deserves you. Create a family, find happiness together, make your parents proud of you, and enjoy your life to the fullest." Despite Kaylee's mistakes, her wise words stayed with me, even in the darkest moments. After going through all of this, I concluded that karma exists. I broke up with Kaylee without malice. I did not seek vengeance on her, but no matter how it happened, karma struck her. She was recently discovered with another man in her bed. The offended spouse was furious when she discovered her husband with another woman in their marital bed and poured boiling water from the kettle over the cheaters. As a result, they were transferred to the hospital with severe burns. Kaylee is no longer as beautiful as she once was. Her face is severely damaged. She probably considered the story behind her actions as well.